Hi everyone, my name is Melissa van Dijk, and in today's video I want to talk about a locally available food and what that actually means when you're preparing your meals. Now I already touched on this in one of my latest videos, which was how the food industry shapes what you think is healthy. And also in a recent community post where I got quite a few questions about it. So I want to go a bit deeper into it because I think it may have been misunderstood. So I was talking about how the foods you see recommended online are often chosen because they're easy to scale and sell, not because they're the best for you. And one of the main examples I gave was salmon. It's one of those foods that you might feel like you have to eat, otherwise you won't get enough omega-3. Now, if you live in an area where salmon is not locally available, but another type of fish is, then it would make more sense to choose that fish instead of relying on salmon that comes from a completely different country and has traveled long distances before it even reaches the supermarket. And if fish is not really available to you at all, or if the water sources in your area are polluted, then it is completely fine to not eat fish and instead rely on other foods like meat, eggs, or even dairy products if those are commonly available in your area. And the same idea applies to things like nuts and seeds. For example, if you live in an area where walnuts or hazelnuts naturally grow, then it makes sense to eat those when they are in season. If you live somewhere where macadamia nuts grow, then you would naturally eat those. And if almonds grow in your region, then those would be your option. But even then, these foods are naturally seasonal. You would not eat them all year round, but rather for a few weeks or maybe a couple of months when they are actually available. And that is very different from what you see today, where nuts and seeds are often eaten every single day, all year round, simply because they are recommended. In a way, they are sometimes even treated like staple foods today, even though they were never really meant to be. So what happens is that you end up buying nuts that have traveled across the world and have been processed so that they can sit on shelves for longer periods of time, which is a very different situation. And you're not missing out on anything if you're not eating those foods. Now, I personally noticed this a lot while traveling and living in different places across Europe, Asia, and Australia. I often stayed in homestays and simply ate what was available there. And over time, you naturally start adjusting to what is available in your environment. You don't really think about it at first, but you also don't try to recreate the exact same diet everywhere you go. Of course, there are some basic foods that are available almost everywhere, so you naturally end up buying those. But overall, your diet still changes. And I think one of the biggest mistakes is trying to eat the same way everywhere. For example, going from the US to Europe or Asia or the other way around and still trying to follow the exact same diet as you had at home. That is not really possible unless you rely on foods that are shipped across the world. And that is exactly the issue. Because this is where the idea of a universal healthy diet starts to fall apart. In reality, it is not possible to eat the same way everywhere in the world and still call it fresh or natural. If food has been shipped across countries and processed in order to stay edible, then it is already very different from something that is locally available. And this is also where it can start to feel confusing, especially when you feel like you're doing everything right, but your body or even your skin does not respond in the way you expect. For example, when I lived in Austria, I mainly ate eggs, beef, lamb, and quite a lot of goat and sheep cheese and yogurt, combined with fruits like berries and vegetables depending on the season. When I lived in Vietnam, my diet looked completely different. I mainly ate soups or stews with beef, or bread with pork and eggs, combined with fresh coconut, fruits like jackfruit, and a lot of fresh herbs and pickled vegetables. And now here in Thailand, I eat more fish, chicken, and eggs, again combined with fruits and vegetables that are available here. And interestingly, I hardly eat any cheese anymore. Occasionally, I might have something like pizza because I'm curious how it tastes in different countries, but overall, I just don't feel the need for it anymore. The same goes for yogurt. It's not something I actively avoid, it's just that naturally I don't really want it as much in this environment. And that already shows you how your preferences can shift depending on where you are. Because not all the foods are equally available everywhere, and some have to be important, which makes them more processed or more expensive. So for me, the main point is not choosing foods based on nutrients or recommendations anymore, but it's about choosing foods based on what is locally available, what is in season, and how fresh and minimally processed it is. So your diet will naturally change depending on where you are and what time of the year it is. For example, parts of Europe or the US, there are times during the year when fruits and vegetables are not really available locally. So naturally, that would also mean eating fewer or hardly any of them during that time. And that is completely fine. Your body adapts, even if your diet becomes more simple and repetitive for a period of time. And I think this is an important shift in perspective. Because instead of trying to build the perfect diet based on global recommendations, it can be more helpful to simply work with what is already around you, what fits your environment, what is fresh, and what your body responds well to. And from my experience, this is also where you often start to see more stable results, not just in how you feel, but also in your skin, because it is all connected. Now that is what I want to share with you today. I hope that I could give you some food for thought and something to reflect on when it comes to your own eating habits. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!